Right now, somewhere within arm's reach, you probably have a phone. And on that phone, you have dozens of apps, thousands of songs, millions of videos, podcasts about everything from Roman emperors to why cats stare at walls. And somehow, you still manage to get bored, which is honestly impressive. We invented a glowing rectangle with access to almost all human knowledge, and our brain still goes. Yeah, but what else? So here's a strange question. What did ancient humans do when they were bored? Not medieval people, not Romans, not Egyptians building pyramids and complaining about stone delivery delays. We're going much further back before cities, before writing, before agriculture, before Netflix had the courage to ask, are you still watching? We're talking about humans 50,000, 100,000, even 300,000 years ago. And the answer is not just funny. It may explain why we created art, music, storytelling, religion, and possibly why your brain starts inventing fake arguments in the shower. But first, did prehistoric humans even have time to be bored? For a long time, people imagined early humans as constantly fighting for survival. Every hour was hunting, gathering, avoiding predators, making tools, keeping fire alive, and trying not to become lunch. And yes, survival was hard. Nobody is saying the Stone Age was a wellness retreat with organic berries and group meditation. But the idea that hunter-gatherers worked every waking hour is probably wrong. In the 1960s, anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies challenged that view. Marshall Solins famously described them as the original affluent society. Not because they owned more things, but because many had something modern people dream about: time. Studies of groups such as the Kung San suggested that food acquisition could take around 15 to 20 hours per week. Even when researchers included food preparation and other domestic work, some estimates landed closer to 40 to 45 hours per week. In other words, prehistoric life was dangerous, but it was not necessarily a 24/7 survival spreadsheet. There were quiet hours, long afternoons, evenings around the fire, moments when nobody was chasing an antelope, nobody was sharpening a spear, and nobody was asking, can we circle back on this mammoth? And in those empty moments, the human mind started doing what it does best. It wandered. The first thing bored humans probably did was play. Play is much older than civilization. You can see it in animals, in children, and in adults who swear they are just checking one thing on their phone and then lose 47 minutes. But human play became different because it started producing symbols. Take Blombos Cave in South Africa. Archaeologists found perforated shells there, dated to around 75,000 years ago. These shells were not food. They were not weapons. They were not tools for scraping meat off bone. They were beads, tiny shells with holes in them, likely worn as ornaments. Imagine someone sitting there tens of thousands of years ago, carefully piercing small shells with stone tools. No metal, no drill, no YouTube tutorial called DIY Paleolithic necklace in 5 easy steps. Just patience, skill, and probably a lot of time. And that matters because beads are not just decoration. They say something. They can mark identity, status, belonging, beauty, or group membership. A bead is a sentence before writing exists. It says, this is me, or this is my group, or maybe, yes, I know it took 6 hours to make this necklace, but look at the finish. At Blombos, archaeologists also found evidence of ochre processing dating back around 100,000 years. Ochre is a red mineral pigment, and humans used it for decoration, symbolic marking, and possibly skin protection. So before humans were building temples, they were already mixing pigments. Before written language, they were already making visual statements. Before Instagram, they had red ochre, and honestly, the engagement rate was probably better. Then came music. In southern Germany, at a site called Hohle Fels, archaeologists discovered a flute made from the wing bone of a griffin vulture. It had 5 finger holes and dates to around 35 to 40,000 years ago. Think about that. Someone looked at a bird bone and thought, I bet I can make this scream beautifully. That is an extremely human thought. The flute appeared during the Upper Paleolithic, a period when humans were making figurines, cave art, personal ornaments, and increasingly complex tools. Music may have helped early humans bond in larger groups. It could synchronize movement, support rituals, calm fear, teach rhythm, and create shared emotion. Because when 30 people sit around a fire in the dark, a good rhythm is not just entertainment. It is social glue, and probably also the world's first awkward open mic night. But boredom did more than create beads and flutes. It may have opened the door to imagination. To be bored, you need more than free time. You need mental time travel. You need to feel that the present moment is not enough. You need to imagine an alternative, something else, something better, something that could happen. That means boredom is connected to one of the most powerful human abilities, thinking beyond the present. A human sitting by a fire 80,000 years ago could think, what if the hunt fails tomorrow? What if the dry season lasts longer this year? What if the stars mean something? What if the dead are not completely gone? What if there is something beyond the mountain? That is where things get huge. Because the moment a brain starts asking what if, it can create tools, myths, plans, jokes, gods, maps, strategies, and excuses for being late. Modern neuroscience gives us a name for part of this process: the default mode network. This is a brain network that becomes especially active when you are not focused on an external task. It is involved in mind-wandering, self-reflection, remembering the past, imagining the future, and thinking about other people's minds. Basically, it is the system that activates when you are doing nothing, which means doing nothing is not actually nothing. Your brain is sorting memories, testing scenarios, building identity, rehearsing conversations, inventing possibilities. This is why your best idea appears in the shower and not when you are aggressively staring at a blank document like it owes you money. Psychologists have also studied boredom directly. In research by Sandyman and Rebecca Cadman, participants were given boring tasks, such as copying or reading phone numbers from a directory, then asked to complete creative challenges, like finding unusual uses for everyday objects. The bored participants often performed better on creative tasks. The theory is simple. When the outside world stops providing stimulation, the brain starts generating its own. Boredom becomes a trigger, not always a pleasant one. Let's be clear. Boredom can feel like your brain has been put on airplane mode, but it can push the mind inward. And inward is where imagination lives. Now, there is one more thing ancient humans did when they were bored. They talked. Not just practical talk like the berries are over there or please stop poking the fire with your foot. They told stories. They shared rumors. They explained dreams. They warned each other about danger. They remembered ancestors. They made fun of the guy who missed the deer from 3 meters away. This mattered more than it sounds. Robin Dunbar, the anthropologist behind Dunbar's number, argued that human language may have evolved partly as a kind of vocal grooming. Among primates, grooming builds trust. But grooming is slow. You can only groom one individual at a time, unless you have 4 arms, which evolution rudely denied us. Speech changed the equation. With language, one person could bond with several others at once. A story could carry information about who was trustworthy, who was selfish, who was brave, who was dangerous, and who absolutely should not be in charge of the fire. Dunbar's research suggested that roughly 2/3 of casual conversation is social in nature, basically. People talking about people. That sounds like gossip. And yes, it is. But prehistoric gossip was not just drama. It was data. In small groups, knowing who can be trusted is survival intelligence. Who shares food? Who lies? Who helps during conflict? Who disappears every time there is work to do? So the next time someone says gossip is useless, remember, gossip may have helped build human society. Obviously, don't use that as an excuse to destroy your group chat. Evolution has limits. So when we ask what ancient humans did when they were bored, the answer is not nothing. They played, they decorated, they made music, they told stories, they imagined the future, they created symbols, they built social bonds. In short, they turned empty time into culture. And here is the uncomfortable part. Modern humans are becoming very good at eliminating boredom. Every quiet moment can now be filled instantly. Waiting in line, phone, eating alone, phone, sitting in bed, phone, avoiding one slightly uncomfortable thought, definitely phone. But for most of human history, silence was not a bug in the system. It was the system. For over 300,000 years, the human brain evolved with long stretches of darkness, waiting, walking, watching, resting, and thinking. Then, in less than 20 years, smartphones made boredom optional. That is not automatically bad. Technology is incredible. Nobody wants to go back to drilling shell beads by hand for 7 hours, unless they are filming a very intense craft vlog. But when we remove every empty moment, we may also remove the mental space where creativity begins. Because boredom did not make ancient humans weaker. It made them invent. It made them ask questions. It made them decorate their bodies. It made them carve bone into music. It made them gather around fires and turn memory into myth. And maybe, the next time you feel bored, the right move is not to immediately escape it. Maybe sit with it for a minute. Let the mind wander, because somewhere deep inside that restless feeling is the same ancient engine that made beads, flutes, stories, and civilization. Boredom is not the enemy of the human mind. It may be one of the reasons the human mind became extraordinary. So stay connected for what comes next. I'm Cairo, and every week I bring you simple, historical facts explained clearly, so the past finally makes sense.